I was have to say got it.
Maybe sheep friend.
We have Milind who is joined in from Atlanta.
Wow.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, Milind.
Thank you.
It's very early for him.
I have shut my camera because I've just woken up.
Okay. Good. Good that you could make it.
Yes, too early in the morning, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday morning in Atlanta.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
So drink Coke and praise Biden.
Around 4. It's around 4 o'clock, na kya?
No.
Yeah, it's
8 o'clock.
nine.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
9
8
o'clock.
Or 9
9
o'clock.
o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Should be 7 a.m. there.
Chalo, now we have 30 participants there,
Oh, that's good. Enough.
Let's start. Yeah, I think other people will
including
join.
because there's a lot of doubling going on, you know. I
Uh,
think in front of one camera there are perhaps
All the
3 or 4.
Now, statistically, that's a good sample size.
Yeah.
It's the difference between circulation and leadership.
Plus,
Amit, you would like to start?
Devadas, shall we start?
Yeah, start. You start off.
Okay.
number of presidents, login.
Sure.
I think you can. Mute.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just mute everybody.
Yeah.
If you mute everybody, we'll all get muted.
Devashish, you
Yeah. All right.
1 second. Let me just.
I have unmuted myself. No problem.
Okay. And Shudhasta.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and good morning to Milind from Atlanta. This is the third session of our thought series lecture. The first one, when we started this about 5 years back, happened at Bengal Club with Professor Prasad Naik talking on platform marketing. The second one, actually, though it was not titled as such, was by Shiv himself at our AGM. That was about 4 years back. And in between, we've had Guru speak. The last 2 years, we couldn't hold the Guru speak because of obvious reasons. And we decided that we've been staying away from everybody for quite some time, other than the people involved in the executive committee of the IIM Calcutta Alumni Association here. There was very little interaction with people, and in spite of several attempts, we couldn't get people to attend or convince everybody to attend physically in any program. Therefore, we decided that we'd start something which can become the center of discussions, if not physical presence. And in that spirit, we restarted the Thought Leadership series online. We've had one recent session on that Thought Leadership series, that too on digital strategy, which was very well accepted by a lot of people who joined in. And it was by Ravi Kumar, who's with Exide, head of digital strategy at Exide. We now decided that we'll take it to a different level by requesting D. Shiv Kumar, as you all know, and Professor Sudhash Roy will introduce him more formally after me. But most of you know about Shiv. Shiv was my batchmate at IMC also. So I'm proud to have a person of that caliber who's gone up from our ranks at IIM. He will be talking on branding in the digital age, but we will introduce the topic. Sudhashda will talk about it, and then she will take on. So welcome everybody to this. The format is that we will have Shiv speaking on the subject. Then Sudhashda will talk to him on some queries that he has on the topic. Finally, anybody who has any questions, please put them in your chat box. Sandeep will monitor the chat box and put up those questions later after Sudhasda's queries with and discussions with Shiv are over. So I now hand over to Sudhasda for the formal introduction of Shiv.
Thank you, Amit. It's a great pleasure today for me to invite and to act as a moderator for the thought series of Shiv Kumar. She was my student, and that is perhaps, to my mind, the most important part of his biodata. I am so, there are few students who a faculty member can always take pride on and say that later on can claim very proudly that I had the good fortune to teach such a student. She was one of those. I still remember also that he was the recipient of Distinguished Alumni Award the year it was introduced by IIM Calcutta. The year was 2011, and I had the pleasant task of writing the citation for that award for Shiv. So our association goes a long way back, and we are more than anything else, I think we are friends of each other. We exchange ideas quite often. So it is nothing like guru shishya or much student teacher, but more of, I think, colleagues and friends sharing similar ideas on the professional ideas in the area of marketing, for example. Shiv is currently with Aditya Birla Group as the head of their strategic group president, executive president of corporate strategy and business development. He has joined them in 2018. Before that, he has been the CEO of Pepsi-Cola for about 4 years. And even prior to that, he had a long stint, almost a decade of service with Nokia, first as CEO of Nokia India, and then as the head of Nokia Emerging Markets. Shiv has been a real professional marketeer and associated with most of the leading multinational companies one time or the other. He has been head of Philips Consumer Electronics. He has played a very senior managerial role in Hindustan Unilever. So talk about marketing, particularly talk about physical marketing. I think we cannot get a more experienced, veteran, hands-on marketer than Shiv. His case studies have also been discussed or being discussed in a number of leading business schools all over the world. So today, I think we are posing him a little bit of a different challenge, and that is to talk on virtual markets or to talk about digital world. And he has picked up a very interesting topic called in this digital world, everything and everyone is a brand. So I'm sure such a topic will kindle a lot of interest in our mind, and all of you can start sharpening your pencils or pens or whatever, jot down your questions in the chat box so that we can have a very lively discussion at the end of his presentation. Shiv is very miserly with sharing his thoughts. So he has said that he will not speak for more than 20-25 minutes. Let's assume that about half an hour he will talk. That is, she will speak for half an hour. And then we shall have a conversation for about 10-15 minutes, where I'll also clarify some of my own doubts and knowledge about this subject. It is not every day that you find an expert and a mentor like Shiv to exchange with, interact with. And finally, for last 15 minutes or so, we shall have an open house where all audience can put in their questions, which will be screened and summed up and put forward by Sandeep for me to address to Shiv and for him to react to. So this is the program for next 1 hour. I'm sure we are in for a very interesting session, an interesting time. Digital has become the buzzword, no doubt about that. And I'll conclude by saying that I was just checking some Google data. I find that 2020 survey puts India's digital advertising spending at about 20,000 crores of rupees out of a total spend of about 70,000 crores of rupees on advertising. So So digital is growing up and catching up fast in the whole world. So Shiv, over to you, and let's all tighten our seatbelts and go for a nice 1 hour flight.
Thank you very much, Sudhasda. It's an absolute pleasure to do this. When Amita reached out and said, "Hey, Shiv, can you do this?" I said yes. And I'm sure that we'll have a lively interaction over the next half an hour. Okay. Can I have my slides up, please?
Yeah, just a moment.
Okay. So I start, and when I asked Amita, what do you want me to speak on? We tossed around a few topics, and then we honed on this one, which is marketing in a world where everyone and everything is a brand. There's not a single person who doesn't want to be a brand in a social world. There's not a single entity, be it a corporation, be it a country, be it a city, be it a beach, be it a monument like Eiffel Tower, that doesn't want to be a brand. So everything and everyone is a brand in a digital world. So how does one navigate that is the topic of the discussion today. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Go back.
Yeah, I'll just go back.
Go back. Two more. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank Professor Sudhas Roy. He taught me, but more than anything, as he rightly said, he was a friend more than a teacher, and we've kept in touch over years. I remember when I finished campus, he said, "Come and teach anytime you want." And I've been there very regularly to teach. Amit, of course, my classmate, and we've met many, many times. And I was happy to come and do the session at the IIM Cal Alumni Association a few years ago. Thank you, Sudhasda and Amita. Next slide, please. Okay. One thing I would say today, in the past, we've said, companies and countries need to be innovative. And in order to be innovative, you need to have investment in R&D, the number of PhDs you produce, the kind of culture you have, all kinds of things we've said. There's a buzzword in almost every generation or two. The one big differentiator today, I believe, for successful individuals and corporations is what I call digital fluency. Just think about it. Railways 200 odd years ago didn't have the kind of, it had an impact, but not the kind of impact that digital has. Airplanes 1904, 117 years ago, okay, it was the death of distance, brought people together. Cell phones started in 1960s with Bell Lab and Motorola, and then became popular in the 90s, and in fact aided this. And my personal journey in digital has been with Nokia and all that we did there. So today, if you are not digitally fluent as an individual, as a corporation, or as a country, I think you are in serious trouble. And you better get digitally fluent is the simple message which the world is telling us. I'm not saying this, but the world is telling us. Next slide, please. So what are the things to keep in mind, especially in the area of reputation and branding? Because that's the topic that we agreed on, where everyone and everything is a brand in today's digital world. So what should you keep in mind? Next slide, please. So number one, communication in a digital world is all about being relevant, relatable, and building rapport. In the old days, as brand managers, we would put out a circular and, a press release, and the media would pick it up. Then there was PTI, it would get amplified, it would go. When television started, we'd get on to the business channels or some channels which are more general and give what I term then the State of the Nation address and say, this is what my brand is doing. This is what my company is doing, and this is why you should believe me or trust me, etc. Today, the wide world of digital ensures that there is far more interaction. You take something like Twitter, you take something like LinkedIn, or you take something like Facebook. Today, the top 3 sites where people go to news are, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. They're not the traditional channels anymore. Despite all the challenges with fake news and things like that, people still go there. It's YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp. That's where they're getting their information from. Every morning, I'm sure you're getting information from various people on your WhatsApp, apart from the, Indians being very good at good morning at 6 a.m. to, the whole world. You know, Indians are the single biggest user of the word good morning in WhatsApp. Okay. Everybody is wishing everybody good morning. So you need to be relevant, you need to be relatable, and you need to build rapport. I got onto social media only in Jan 1, 18, when I joined ABG. And they said, no, we want all our senior managers to be on social media. So I said, okay. And so I've learned over the last 4 years, okay, actually practicing this. You could well ask me, why wasn't I on social media before? That's because my comms director, both in PepsiCo and Nokia, a wonderful lady called Poonam Kaul, would say, Shiv, you'll respond to every single message. It will create more problems for the PR department. So please keep quiet. You know, somebody will say, I have a problem with the quality of the phone or the product, and then you'll reply, please don't do that. We don't want you on social media. So that's the reason I wasn't on social media. So I've had both, good and bad experience on social media, mostly good. But let me give you, the bad example for you to realize how people think about things on social media. Rajat Gupta, ex-McKinsey CEO, wrote a book. Okay, and I have a habit of summarizing books and posting it on LinkedIn. On my LinkedIn post, you'll see that I keep posting all book summaries, which I find interesting. And I can tell you, there were so many CEOs who were just so anti the act that I had done right now, which was posting a summary of Rajat Gupta's book. They said, this guy is a time pass guy. He's a felon. He should be in jail. Why are you promoting his book? What right do you have to promote his book? And I was thinking, I was just doing it for the larger good. I didn't have any intent either. I've met Rajat Gupta once in ISB. I don't know him at all, but I thought it's an interesting point of view from a CEO who was right at the top of his game and then he went to jail. Okay, but people were so angry about it. And that was completely unnecessary in my book. And that's why you have to ensure, that whatever you post, that you're relevant, relatable, and you're building rapport. That's an odd example, but it's a relevant example. Let me give you one more. In 2013, Bharti and Walmart split. And so Hindu Business Line called me and said, hey, Shiv, can you do, an edit piece on whether this is good or bad for India? I argued that it was bad for India. And so I was watching the next day, the Business Line comments, etc. And there was comment number 22 or 23, which said, this is an article written by one MBA for other MBAs. In the past, you would never get this kind of feedback. And I genuinely look for feedback because that tells me very clearly whether I've honed in on my target audience, whether I'm conveying the right message to my audience. I can easily make out when a message goes through, and I can easily make out when I'm on the fringes of a message. Next slide, please. The first thing about digital, language is very, very important. All of us carry the responsibility, every brand, including yourself, to be neutral, to be inclusive and sanitized. I'm sure that each and every one of you has your own batch WhatsApp, right? And each and every group has its own rules, right? As to what can be posted, what cannot be posted on WhatsApp in the, batch group. It's the same in a digital world. It's just much bigger, that's all. Okay, you've come to some degree of laws and regulations. There's obviously a moderator or somebody, a group admin, who ensures that people are staying within the guidelines. And that same is true and applicable to a larger world. So the trouble with the digital world is that the digital world does not have an erase button. Okay, it remembers everything and forgets nothing. So you have to be extremely critical in thinking through what you're going to post, because you post one thing one day and then it'll come back to bite you. When I talk to young audiences across the IIMs, I tell them, look, there are some things, some topics, just stay off it, whether you like it or not. And the topics are sex, religion, okay, people from a state or people from a country or commentary, just stay out of it. It doesn't help you at all. You might think you're very smart and you got it off your chest, but it will come back to bite you. So be very clear what are the topics that you have some degree of decent, authentic communication on. If you don't do that, you're in serious trouble. Today, the trouble with digital is everybody is on nanoseconds. Everybody wants to post very quickly what he or she has to say. That's because they want to be first out of the door. They want to be the first one where somebody tags them, etc., and reposts. That's the reason they do it. So digital world is not getting better thinking, but it's getting better speed out of people in just posting whatever they want. Next slide, please. Next, if you look at the digital world has formalized a number of things which were not formalized before. For example, today in a digital world, you can get outstanding ratings of professors. One of my friends, their daughter has gone to study in Stony Brook, and she was going to take Asian economics and Asian psychology or something like that as a topic. It's interesting what she did. She went through all the professors' bio. She looked at what ratings the professors had over the last 3 years, and finally chose a Bangalore-based professor called Sridhar for her to go and attend the class, which was last week. This is how digital is helping people. If you're good, especially if you're a teacher, you can be an absolute rock star in a digital world. Same is the case with lawyers. Same is the case with doctors. Same is the case with government bureaucrats. Everybody has an informal rating on digital. Some get formalized, some don't. So what digital has done is we've moved from what I call private word of mouth to public word of mouth. Okay, whether it's a restaurant you want to go to, you see all the ratings. You want to buy a product, you see all the comments of your friends. So it's no longer the source of authority resting with the brand or the corporation or the brand manager or the retail outlets. Today, it truly rests with consumers and people who've gone through that. Next slide, please. Reputation in a digital world is earned and lost every single day, believe it or not, every single day. All you need to do is go and search Biden and Afghanistan and what's happening. Biden was riding high 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago before August 2nd. And today, if you look at the commentary across the world, people are actually seriously challenging America and saying, can America ever be an ally? I'm not a political guy. I do not have any interest, but all I'm trying to tell you is that's how quickly it changes. One action of yours can actually get you a volley of positive commentary or a volley of negative commentary. Equally, look at those two high jumpers in the Olympics who decided to share their high jump medal, and look at the spirit of camaraderie and friendship which actually it got. Look at what glory with the women's hockey team without winning a medal got to India. Look at the stories and the emotions behind Rani Rampal and everybody, which became so digital and so viral. So reputation is earned and lost every day. Before the call, we were talking about cricket. India collapsed just now and got out at 279. I guarantee you now, if you go to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, you'll see hordes of commentary on what's happening. In the past, you would possibly open a column by Mohan of the Hindu or somebody in Calcutta or somebody in Delhi and get an expert opinion. Today, you don't need that guy at all. So the I live by the day 6 a.m. journalist is no longer relevant in today's world. It's people who have become citizen journalists, people who voice their opinion and people who have a point of view. So reputation is truly much more broad-based today, and it's earned and lost every single day. Next slide, please. So my last but one slide. If you look at the new elements of a marketing mix, and I've tried to put it as simply as possible because this is a wide audience. This is not a marketing audience or a supply chain audience or audience like that. It's a much broader audience. In the past, we had a simple variable called product. Today, believe it or not, in a digital world, the product is no longer a product. At its root is education. At its root is service. At its root is time. Time is a very big element in a digital world. So in the pandemic, if you went and checked, and Google just put out this report, almost all consumers were checking what is an ideal heart rate? What are symptoms of COVID? Okay, what is a good diet for COVID? Okay, how do I make this payment? Okay, how do I mix and match clothes? How do I apply mascara? In the area of cooking, there were 17,500 videos posted with a total viewership of 454 million. Okay, so everything starts with education even before the product is tried. So product has now turned to product plus education plus service plus time. Every product has a service element today because the last mile delivery is extremely important in a digital world. So there are some brands which promise you 30 minutes, like a pizza. But by and large, most Indians in the last 18 months want same day delivery of everything. Whether it's vegetables, whether it is packed food, whether it's a refrigerator, whether it's a washing machine, whether it's a plate cleaner, whatever you think of, they want delivery the same day. Indians have always been impatient, but I think digital has made them even more impatient than before. Next, if you look at the place, we've classically thought of going either to the company office or we've thought of going to the retail outlet to really buy or exchange with money whatever we wanted. Today, location is consumer location. It's no longer retail location. It's no longer physical outlet. The consumer has the facility to call, ask, pay for something at his or her doorstep. The most important real estate in the world, the most pricey real estate in the world is your app position on the mobile screen. The mobile screen at best, this is a Nokia phone. I always use a Nokia. That's a 6-inch diagonal phone. So you can calculate what's the total retail space available there. So maybe you have 2 screens at best, the third screen is nothing. So for most apps, if you're not number 1 or 2 on the screen, you're dead and gone. Okay, so location is, consumer location is very important. Your location on the screen is very, very important. Third place, payments are now not at an institution. They're at a consumer location. And they're at a consumer location depending on what the consumer wants to do, which leads me to the price point. Look at the number of price options. Even if you buy something for as low as 200 rupees today, you have an EMI option in most places, believe it or not. Some cases, people are happy to deliver even 100 rupees worth of goods and services at your doorstep. The physical cost of transporting that from the manufacturer or whoever it is to your physical location is 60 rupees a kg. Imagine. So the physical cost of the delivery is very high, but that's what is being delivered today. So I have any number of payment options. I remember a few years ago, and I would say maybe 10 years ago, even as back as 10 years ago, marketing professors and marketing practitioners would talk of a concept called cognitive dissonance, which is, okay, you know what? I bought this car, but I'm unhappy. I paid 2 lakhs for it, but Amit got a car which is 2 lakhs, but he's got more features in it. So I'm a little unhappy, or I didn't get the color I wanted. And the waiting time was too much, so I didn't get the color. Imagine today's world. The housewife orders for shoes. They come in 4 colors. She rejects all 4, sends it back. Forget cognitive dissonance. This is exact opposite of that. Equally, you buy a shirt, apparel. In the apparel business, the returns is as high as 26 to 30%. People ask for a kurta, people ask for a shirt, people ask for a t-shirt, try it on, stand in front of the mirror, don't like it, or the family member said, look, no, that's too tight, that's too bad, you have a similar product, they send it back. Then we refurbish it and then, again, rework it and send it back. Returns is, absolute galore. When was the last time you could go to an outlet and return anything? We in consumer products right through our life, we would tell the retailer to only accept a product from a consumer if it had a quality problem. Otherwise, no. Our guarantee was only about quality. If the toothpaste tube was crimped or the phone had a broken something, we might consider it. But today, returns is a no hold bars policy. You can take it back. Many people are giving you a guarantee saying, you find this at a cheaper rate, I'll bridge the gap. Only John Lewis in UK used to do that before. John Lewis has a board even today which says, if you buy the same product from any other outlet and it's cheaper, we'll reimburse the money to you. In a digital world, very easy for price discovery. Within a few minutes, you know the price of the category or the product or whatever you're buying across outlets, across countries, across wherever it is. And the other thing about price is I mentioned about time. Time is today monetized. If somebody wants something now, you can price it higher. We used to call this revenue management in Pepsi. When on a hot day, people will pay a higher price for a soft drinks. On a wintry day, they will not even pay, 10% of the price. Okay, or a rainy day, it's just washed up. So time and the ability to monetize time, with the right pricing has become extremely important. Look at the number of sites which are free on news. And what do they all say? If you go to the Guardian, you go to the Independent, they'll say, thank you for going through the Guardian. We have a bunch of journalists. They are very talented, very good people. We cannot succeed just on you reading this. Can you please donate whatever you want? Maybe it's $1, maybe it's £1, but please do it. And finally, all of promotion today is about education, is about time, is about service, is about returns. It's just not a simple consumer promotion, what we ran in the past. So everything you can augment your product with, whatever education you can provide, whatever tips you can provide, all go into ensuring in a digital world that you're much better placed to serve the consumer. So the classic way of marketing, which is what was practiced, I think when Jerome McCarthy started the 4 Ps of marketing, okay, it must have been practiced for 70, 80 years or more. I think this is shifting dramatically. There's a new breed of marketeer out there. The old companies, the old marketeers don't understand this. If you look at the FMCG companies, they're the slowest to react. I've been telling the FMCG companies in almost every forum from my Nokia days that you need to change. In every forum, I say you're just too slow. And that's the catch. Why is that? Because they have relied on the following advantages. The advantage was distribution. In a digital world, distribution gets disrupted. Okay, you don't need to be physically available in 1 million outlets. You get 1 million clicks, you're fine. Who the hell is bothered whether you have served an outlet which is 20 meters from my house or 50 meters from my house? So the brand companies or FMCG companies, which actually crafted brand management and crafted the whole concept of how to be good marketeers, are on the back foot today. They're not the leading edge in terms of thinking. They're way behind, I would suggest to you. They're actually lost because they are unable to shift their advantages from the distribution and brand building world to a world which is absolutely rapidly changing on a daily basis. What does this mean to consumers and manufacturers? Every housewife who can make a good cake, who can make a good faluda, who can make a good rasgulla today has a brand. She can sell it absolutely fresh on her street. So if there's a lady on Park Street, she can actually market the best of her cooking skills to only Park Street and deliver it. So today when people order for dinner for 20, 10 people, etc., they're not ordering from restaurants. They're ordering from housewives in the neighborhood who they know are very good cooks and who deliver great products. Okay, almost everything, okay, is now going hyper local. Okay, so there is a global, technology which is sweeping the world, but all issues are hyper local. 96 to 97% of searches are about local. When we did a study in 5 villages of Raebareli, when I was in Nokia, this I'm talking about 2011-12, we did this project for Kaushik Basu, who's with the World Bank now. Almost every search there, we gave free phones, we gave free internet and said, okay, let's see the behavior. All the searches were about who was the MLA in 1955, who was the MP, when was the last road made, where is the nearest tap. It had nothing to do with Delhi and the Prime Minister and anything like that. Even today, all search is local. Okay, next slide, please. So in summary, as I mentioned, the digital world remembers everything and absolutely forgets nothing. I'll give you a simple way to think about this digital world. And the way to think about this digital world is, in the past, technology was the domain of governments. The government brought in technology to the world. Then corporations brought in technology to the world. Today, technology is available to consumers. It's not the government, it's not the corporation. The average consumer has more technology power in his or her palms compared to any time in the world, and this will only accelerate. This will bring in its weight, regulation, control from corporations, from governments, from everybody. It's natural, but it's here to stay. Okay, so at the end of 23 minutes, Sudhasda, I'm done with what I have to say. Over to you.
Thank you, Shiv. And as usual, you have been at your creative and imaginative best. You never disappoint on delivering innovative ideas, and today has been no exception. I was listening to you and I was trying to find out some questions or some doubts which can, so pardon me to using the phrase, catch you on the wrong foot. But frankly, I don't think that is going to be very easy. But anyway, just to have a nice conversation on the topics that you have mentioned, I am just raising a couple of points. Things that you have said, which is in the digital world, which is with the ambience being digital, the basic concepts of building a brand, making reputation, etc., etc. How far? I'm not bringing the marketing mix factors yet into the picture, but the fundamental principles of making a brand established or strong, has it undergone any change? Is it that the concepts are still, practical, viable, though in applied context, there may be a lot of changes? You have taken a position that it is bringing in, things are being disrupted very strongly by digital, distribution being a case in point. So would you say that you firmly believe that time has come to reinvent marketing right from the scratch? Or do you think all that is required is basically to find out contextual relevance of the concepts which have guided marketing so far?
I think, see, at the heart
I just concluded by saying, when we were in the early 70s, I remember, we used to watch tennis, Wimbledon tennis particularly, where people like Bjorn Borg were making it almost a monopoly of winning the titles. Now, the common saying was that from the anti-sweat band that he wears on the forehead to the shoelace that he ties between sets, everything is branded. Everything is carrying some company logo or some company sponsorship. Isn't that a brand building exercise? And isn't that an individual brand being built? So in what fundamental way we are doing things differently now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you, Sudhasta, for that question. So let me put it this way. The world has got branded far more. If you look globally, I'll start with the global answer and then drill down. If you look globally, there are about 2,000 categories globally. There are about 500,000 brands or more globally. Okay, so almost everything is branded. Okay, now that is linked not to technology. It's one part linked to technology, but one part linked to the growth in per capita income in most countries. Okay. As a country become economically better off, people seek better brands and better products. Okay, India is a great example of how many airlines we had, how many we have today, how many operators we had today, etc. There's a dramatic shift. Okay, the basic product or the basic service is the core of whatever you deliver, and you cannot be wrong on that. I think in the past, even if you are wrong, you could get away to a particular degree, but today that's almost impossible. Okay, that's number one. Today, I think you are practicing marketing in a very fast, responsive world. So the time dimension of marketing is very different. For example, in the past, if we would relaunch a product, a consumer product, we typically take maybe once in 2 years, once in 3 years. Okay, to change the design of the packaging, to do fresh advertising, whatever it is, etc. Today, people are doing this in, if you look at the pandemic, people have done it in 70 days, 2 months, 3 months. So the time interval of marketing, stimulus cue, response, getting feedback is so rapid and absolutely fantastic. If you go back in the 1960s is when big time movie advertising started. 66 seconds of advertising, okay, in cinema theater. Then we got the television advertising in India in 1959 and then 1984. Classically, it was 30 seconds, 20 seconds, etc. Today, Facebook has ads which are 3 seconds, believe it or not, 3. So at one level, you could argue that the marketer has to be very sharp in saying, what is the one message that I want to say? So has it brought more rigor and discipline to the marketeer's mind? Yes. But you don't have the luxury of 20 seconds to say it. You have 3 seconds, that's it. You have one message. So I think marketing is getting tighter and tighter thanks to time.
Thank you. Regarding the communication, issue of communication, you have mentioned that in a social medium like Facebook or Twitter, whatever, we need to be more inclusive. We need to be more neutral. We need to be more sanitized. Now, because it so happens that invariably the reactions are very polarized. Now, if I use these three concepts for promoting my brand or my communication, how far do you think they will engage? How far do you think they will get traction? We have been always told classically that my message should be sharply focused, sharply positioned, and meant for the target group. And whereas in places like Facebook or Twitter, the whole thing is far more diffused, far more amorphous, and to make a message stand out in that context becomes far more difficult. So in one
Absolutely.
sense, would you say that the brand building becomes a more challenging task when we talk about social media as a communication medium or platform?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Sudhasta. I'll give you examples and what I've realized. In the past, we put out advertising. We tried to alter the attitude of consumers to the category or the brand, depending on the task. If it was not going very well, what did we do? We ran a promotion to alter behavior, hoping that by altering behavior, you'd change attitude. Okay.
Right.
And in doing this, we are always consistent. That's what we try to do as good brand managers and marketers. Today, the influencers, and the word you use, context, is very, very important. Let me give you an example. In my last role, we had a brand called Tropicana. Okay. And Tropicana is a wonderful product. A lot of mothers give Tropicana the juice, either before they go to school or when they come back from school. And it comes in a Tetra pack. And even if there's a single scratch anywhere, it develops some challenge in the product, in the structure of the product. So there was this person who had this problem for a kid, and the product was not good. And she was trying to get through to the company and saying, hey, you know what, this product is not good, and you guys are not doing anything about it. And as always in a company, they don't respond properly. They say, look, it's your problem. You bought it from the wrong outlet. The retailer sold a wrong product to you, whatever it was, etc. Then she did something interesting. She posted it on a mother's group. There are groups called moms groups in almost every city. There's a group called the Moms of Gurgaon, the Moms of Bangalore, the Moms of Delhi, etc. She posted it on that. And suddenly the whole world went ballistic. What is the context? People are saying, hey, you big company, here's a mother trying to feed her kid a nutritious drink. And you guys are all bothered about something else. Okay, you've forgotten that the context is the mother and daughter, or the mother and kid. So then we had to engage with a lot of these mothers of Gurgaon, mothers of Delhi, etc. And it was interesting, Sudhasta, about 10 years ago, if I had a problem with the product or the brand that I was selling in my company, people would complain and people would say, can you give me a product, a replacement product? But this time around, this story is from 2015, all the mothers were asking me and challenging me as the CEO to say, please show us your processes. Tell us that you've got it right, that your quality will be 110% right.
Oh.
Okay, so now they're not asking for freebies. They're forcing companies to change, and they're forcing you to put it in a public domain to say, this is how we produce our product. Please do this. Okay, so times have changed. You have a far more educated consumer. We always said the consumer is queen or king, but we never believed it. Okay, today the consumer is truly king or queen because in one moment, she can gather 1 million views or comments against you. That power was not there before. That context has changed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. That's beautiful. I'll just take one or two more questions because I think we have to give chance to other people also. This has come back again and again in your presentation. Reputation is earned and lost every day. Well, absolutely correct. And if it is so, then what do you do? How do you build an enduring brand which can offer a sort of a consistent value proposition?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Let's start with individuals. Okay. The trouble with the digital world is you need to be funny, you need to be witty, you need to be relevant, you need to be on the ball for you to get followers, because the game is about how many people liked it, how many people retweeted it, whatever it is, etc.
Correct.
But brands don't work like that. Brands can take a good, you can build it in a nice way. For example, there was this guy from Calcutta called Rahul Bose, who went to, I think, Marriott or Westin in Chandigarh, and they charged him some
Right.
horrendous 300 and
For
odd
the
rupees for 2
banana.
bananas, remember?
Right, right.
You remember that? Okay,
Correct.
that's a great story I want to tell you about brand building. A lot of people, brands got onto that. Pizza said, hey, you know what? You can get 6 pizzas for 250 rupees or 3 pizzas. But I thought the best communication actually came from Taj, who said, you know what? If you check into our hotel, these bananas are free. So that's a very simple way to say it without actually knocking competition. So I think using the context well, but not polarizing people, I think is the only way to do. Once you take a stance, okay, and you do not go away from it, or you stick or dig your heels in, then you are in problem. Okay, so I think staying more mainstream, but staying humorous and staying funny still gets you a lot of good response.
Right.
Okay, let me give another example. Sindhu went and won bronze medal. Look at the number of brands who said, hey, Sindhu, you're great, etc. She sued all those companies, including Procter & Gamble.
Right.
Now, Procter & Gamble is the home of brand management. I would really tell Madhu and gang that they must be stupid to have done something like this. Okay, now the power is with the celebrity. In the old days, you do it. And I remember I had this conversation with the head of comms in ABG. He said, Shiv, what's wrong in it? I said, there's nothing wrong in wishing her, but it's her right to decide who wishes. I said, tomorrow, if somebody who's been on the blacklist of the government or the blacklist of public puts money and takes a full page newspaper in an ad, will you as a brand like it or as a celebrity like it? The answer is no. So you have to be a little more sensible, and you can still be, mainstream and build your brand as long as you're aware of that.
Thank you. Okay, so I think the last question, if I may put it this way, actually there are 2 more questions. We have a situation like everybody has a 1-minute claim to fame. Social media actually almost guarantees it in a way. Now we have somebody who all that she did up to that point of time was basically wink at somebody. I don't know whom she winked at, but she winked, and it was captured. There was a lady who was very, very hard, ill off, and she was singing songs in the platforms or train cars of Ranaghat local trains in Calcutta, near Calcutta. And suddenly one day he became Ranu, what is the name? Ranu Mandal. And got 1 million views in YouTube because of her beautiful dulcet voice. The question now that I have for you is the winking girl a brand? Is Ranu Mandal a brand? Or are they just passing fads or phenomena?
For that moment, yes. So Priya, the girl who was the winking girl from Kerala, the actress.
Right.
Okay. Now she was a brand in her own right, but what she did, I think, gathered lots of views, etc. But after that, she has to do something worthwhile. You can be a brand for a moment, and today you say a minute. Actually, Andy Warhol said this, that everybody will have fame for 15 seconds. And he said this in 1960s.
Right.
He didn't say it today, even before digital technology came in and social media came in. But what Priya does with that after that is just as important. Okay, one wing does not make an actress or a professional. It's what you do with that branding after that which matters. And I give you a very good example, and I think all of you will agree. I believe the best brand example, and I'm talking of this brand which is from the 1970s. 70s brand, 80s brand, 90s brand, 2000 brand, 10 brand, 20 brand. It's 50 years since this brand has been with you, Sudhasta. This brand has constantly been contextual, up to date, up to speed, and is still relevant even today in a different context. That's Amitabh Bachchan. Think about it. Amitabh Bachchan actually is the most active on digital media of all the stars in India. Correct. He's still very relevant. He gets his message across. Still very popular. Okay, he was popular in the 70s in a physical world. He was popular till 2000. In the last 15 years, he's been popular in a digital world. Because what he has to say magnifies the personality and the brand of Amitabh Bachchan. Okay, he's not gone away like
Yes.
his contemporaries, which is the Dharmendra. Dharmendra is trying back now, but it's too late.
Right.
Jitendra is trying, too late. But Amitabh Bachchan has ridden the wave very, very well. You must give it to him.
Okay, last question, definitely last question. We have been going through a survey report a couple of days back, which unfortunately said that among the huge sample of people they surveyed, nearly 70% people said that one of the least trusted professional is an advertising executive. Now, my question is that if we accept that this survey was representative and it really sends a message across, now, would you say that in the today's digital world, particularly in the platforms like social media, etc., this trustworthiness or lack of it of advertising people, has it improved or decreased? Or what's your take on this?
So if you look at, Edelman runs a trust survey every year. Okay. The word trust has appeared, I think, 11 times in the last 13 years. Okay, that they've done this survey. So from 2007 or 8, the word has appeared. Now, by and large, the trend line has been trust in media has dropped. Okay, trust in government has gone up in some cases here, there, etc. Trust in NGOs went up and now it's down. And trust in business has actually gone up. Okay, that's a broad trend across the world.
Okay.
India trust in now, surprisingly, in the last 20 months, trust in government in most countries has gone up thanks to the way they handle the pandemic. Believe it or not. Okay, but here's an interesting question. Whom do they trust? I think the last survey, if I can remember my data right, I think 78% of people said, I trust someone like me. So somebody who's like me, whoever says something is more relevant to me. I would trust that person rather than trusting a corporation or a CEO or a PR department or the president of a country. So a person like me is the person they trust the most. So which goes back again to the social world of saying, if you have cachet in society, and that's why people are now talking about saying, are you doing good for society? A lot of people have a lot of big grand purpose statements, but truly on the ground, if you don't do something for society in the place you operate in, it won't work. Let me give you a tangible example. Pepsi uses water. Okay, we use 2 liters of water for every liter of soft drink we produce. To give you a sense, garments use 10,000 liters of water. But the poor Cokes and Pepsis get bashed all the time for using water. So Nelmangla is a plant outside of Karnataka. Okay, so I went there. So I went to the society there and asked the villagers, hey, what's the issue? They said, Shiv, there's no water bodies here. You're using water. Okay, can you refill the water bodies? So then we started a program of refilling water bodies and building water bodies in and around every plant, the 50 odd plants that Pepsi had in India. Okay. And when we did that, it was amazing, that those people posted on Facebook, those people posted on other stuff saying, here's a company which is committed to the local society. When I went there before, there would be protests outside our gate saying you're using water. Now the conversation shifted to, hey, you know what, Shiv, we don't have a school. Okay, our children have to walk a long distance. Is there any way you can, influence authorities to get a school? And when we actually built the second water body there, D.V. Prasad, the chief secretary or the industry secretary then, he later became chief secretary, retired. He came to inaugurate it. From being a pariah, in 3 years, we went to being part of society.
Right.
So I think it's very important. And I remember when I left Sudas, the union came and, the usual, thank you, sir, blah, blah, etc. The union leader posted it on Facebook and he had thousands of views of, the farewell speech he made. So if you live in a digital world, you have to recognize if you don't do something for society, you're in trouble.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Now I think I should hand over the task to Devu and Sandeep.
Yeah, so I will ask the first question. The first question here is, I'll ask it in terms of relevance. This is from GM. I was very interested to learn about ratings of people in including bureaucrats.
Oh, that's available everywhere now.
Which site offers this?
I think
Has
the,
it had any? Has
the
it had
government
any
offers
effect?
this
Hello?
at a central level. The Delhi government offers it. There are many governments in the country which offer it. If there's any problem, there are traffic departments which offer it. There are police departments which offer it by city. So this is caught on like wildfire. Trust me.
Okay, the next question is, you mentioned that digital brings in better speed, but not better thinking. How can one control quality of information dissemination, especially among the younger generation, that would help them be more astute decision makers, opinion makers, etc.?
I think being very clear about the tramlines of what you want to say as a brand is important. So within those tramlines, as long as you're communicating and as long as you're responding with speed, I'm absolutely fine. The trouble starts when you go beyond the tramlines and you start thinking that you can do everything. That's when the communication goes awry.
Thank you. There are no more questions which have come in the chat box, but if anybody wants to say
There is
something.
one question I saw, I think from Professor Pradeep Kakkar, if it's the same professor, and
Yes, he is.
can you talk a bit more about, he taught me, so I have to answer the question. Okay, I owe it to him. Okay, can you talk a bit more about digital fluency? So let me go back a bit in time. Computerization or technology started in companies around the 1970s and 80s. And where did it start? It started for payroll, believe it or not. That's where it started. Number one was payroll.
Yeah.
So because it started in payroll, all IT departments in the 70s and 80s reported to the CFO. Okay. Then the HR department started it. Okay. And today it's omnipresent. A company is digitally fluent in my book if it has a spine which is digital, which connects the consumer order or the customer order right back all the way to your sourcing. So let me give an example. So in PepsiCo, the S&OP process was the backbone of the whole company. So the demand forecast came in. Based on the demand forecast, we decide which manufacturing plants needed to produce what, which pack, which price, etc. Then the procurement department would decide to buy how much sugar to buy, how much potatoes to buy, how much whatever to buy, and then the farmer would get that order. That whole process was digitized, every single element of it. Now, one of the aspects of digital fluency is that, especially in India, but it's true in other countries, corporations have long been modeled on two institutions, the army and the church, and both are hierarchical, vertical hierarchy institutions. So in most Indian companies, you get what I call a vertical democracy. Now, if you look at the pandemic, what has really worked in the pandemic is what I call horizontal collaboration. There are 50 to 60% more communication tools available today on our desktop. That forces us to work horizontally as opposed to work vertically. And that is what I mean by digital fluency, end to end, from what you sell to what you buy, and how much of your processes and how much of collaboration is there amongst departments. That's the only way you'll get agility in a company today. Otherwise, you will end up with silos.
We have one question, which is global brand building in the digital world for any reason still more difficult for countries like India compared to the Western world or other countries?
Absolutely. I think, see, global brands are so much more difficult in some categories compared to other categories. In technology, very rarely do you have, local brands. If you look at the Googles of this world, the Facebooks of this world, etc., by and large, they're global entities because they caught the wave, they invested, etc. China, of course, has its own local Facebook or Google or whatever you want to call it. Food brands, by and large, tend to be local. Food brands. The global brands really don't have a significant presence except in a top end, a little bit here, there, etc. That's basically because the taste palette changes in a country almost every 100 kilometers. So the winners in food tend to be local. The winners in food tend to be people who are able to manage their local supply chain far better. Global supply chains in food are so much more difficult. You ask a McDonald's, you ask a Burger King, they'll tell you that. Global brands at the high end, what I call the exclusive club set, a Bally, a Hermes, okay, a Louis Vuitton, they will always be there. Okay, but is there a mass middle class global brand? Okay, that will always be under challenge in today's world, especially as we go more and more hyperlocal.
Chief, thanks a lot. I think you have held us spellbound for the last 1 hour. And if there's no more questions, then thanks a lot. Would there be somebody to convey the?
Yeah, I think Amit.
Yeah, so Amit will take the stage again and convey a formal vote of thanks to Shiv. Amit, please.
Yeah. I think after a long time, we've had somebody speaking on a subject where we've been getting all kind of information. I mean, I don't think anybody amongst us is actually digitally illiterate in that sense, but thinking digital and living and working in a digital environment are quite two different things, as we have all recognized. So I think Shiv has brought that angle into play, that digital is just not being able to surf the net or having a Twitter handle or having a Facebook page and communicating with peers and friends. It's more about the inputs that we get from all around and how we process them internally and what influences our decisions, particularly with regard to our attitudes, not only the buying behavior, but our attitudes towards products and brands. So I think it has been a very illuminating talk, and thanks to Professor Sudas Roy for bringing out a lot of nuances on this subject. Also, thanks to the participants who have been, spent their time on this weekend to listen to this, as well at the same time have been asking some very relevant questions which Sandeep had verbalized on their behalf. So thank you very much. Do stay with us in the future. We'll bring you much more interesting talks on this series every month. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shiv.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
They do wonderfully job. Wonderful.
Thank you. So I'm ending the call.
Yeah.